Well, hi y'all, this is Ginger with Ginger Snap Thrifting, and this is DIY holiday gift number 6. For this gift, we're going to make these cute little card wallets. They open up. They're just perfect to put a little credit card in here, maybe $1 or another card back there. They snap easily. This one has a keychain on it. This one has a wrist lanyard, and so does this one. They are about 4.5 inches wide by 2 3/4 inches deep. They're perfect to carry if you're going into the grocery store and just need to take your debit card, or if you need to take your keys and a debit card or an ID card if you're going to go walk at the track or out in the neighborhood. They snap securely. They're easy open, easy close. There's no magnets to bother those magnetized strips in your debit and credit cards. I'm going to start out showing you how to make the pattern for these, and then we'll move into making them. To draw your template, you either need a piece of poster board, or you can tape 2 pieces of printer paper together like I did, and I taped on the back side so that I would have no tape over here to draw. Then you're going to draw a rectangle. Your rectangle should be 13.5 inches long by 5 5/8 inches tall. And you want to make sure that your corners are square. So I used a piece of pre-cut cardstock just to lay in there and make sure that they were square. Okay, to shape the left hand end, you're going to measure up 3 1/8 inches and put a mark. You're going to measure over this way 4 1/8 inches and put a mark. And then from this, you'll measure up again 3 1/8 inches and put a mark. Okay, so we're going to join these 2 marks. These are 4 1/8 inch from the left edge. I'm going to join them with a straight line. And these are 3 1/8 inch from the bottom side. We're going to join these with a straight line. Okay? Now, we're going to erase this line out because you don't want to cut on this line. This is going to be the fold line. So that's going to be a fold line. Fold line. All right. Now we want to go from this mark all the way straight up through those 2 little marks. And draw a line there. Join those 2 marks. Now, this, we're going to cut out this area. Cut out. All right. Next, we're going to go over and we're going to work on this other end and form it. Okay. You're going to measure 4 1/8 from this point and this point. So 4 1/8. It's right there. And then I'm just going to line this up straight. 4 1/8. It's right there. And we're going to draw a line there. We're going to measure up from the bottom up here 3 1/8. Three 1/8 is right there. So that's our mark right there. Now over here, we're going to measure up from this corner 2 inches. Okay, so remember, this end is slanted. So our slant is going to be from this point down to this point, but we have to allow a seam here. So we're going to come over off that mark, the quarter inch right there. And then from this quarter inch to that, we're going to draw a straight line. Right there. So this comes straight in and then slopes up slightly. All right, we're going to cut this out. All right, let me cut this out and I'll be right back with you. Okay, I set this on a gray mat in hopes that you'd be able to see it better than the white paper laying on my white tabletop. So you see I've cut out the two areas. Now we're going to cut along this line and across that line. Alright, the only thing left to do now is to round these corners. And an easy way to round your corners is to take something round. I've got the spool of thread. I'm going to set it right in there. And I'm going to take a pencil. And I'm just going to mark it. You see? Then I'll fold this back together slightly. And just cut around the line. You've got your rounded corners. And this is how you make your template. So here's our finished pattern. I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little closer. Just take your time, follow the instructions. And remember, from here to here, there's no measurement because you're going to measure up here and you're going to measure up here, and then you're just going to draw a line between the 2 points. I hope this is easy for you to follow and understand. If not, if you have a big problem, I do have PDF files available. Just shoot me a message in the message box and perhaps I can email it to you. Okay, we're going to start cutting out our pieces for our card holder. I've got my pattern cut out. I cut it out of poster board because I'm going to make several of these and I want to be able to trace around it. I'm going to apologize for any shadows that's on my work surface. There's just nothing I can do about that, y'all, and I'm just sorry. But what I'm going to do is hold this down. I'm on my fleece batting. And I'm going to just mark around this. Now you can use fleece, you can use quilt batting scraps, you can use pretty much whatever you want to, because this is not going to get against heat. This is just something to give it a little bit more oomph, a little bit more cushion. If you were using a really heavy duty fabric, you could skip the step. You know, if you were using like a heavy upholstery fabric, a heavy denim, anything like that. Okay, so we're going to put that aside so we can cut that in a little bit. Now, I am using, you will remember the old shirts I snapped up at the thrift store. Actually, they were pretty nice shirts. And I used those to make another project. But right now, I'm going to use these shirts to make my my little card wallets. So I press these down with the iron so they're not real wrinkled. I'm going to spread them out. I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 at a time. So I've got wrong sides together here. I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to pin these because I've got 2 sides together. I'm just going to pin the fabric so it doesn't shift on me when I start cutting. See, I'm just kind of pinning around the edges. And if you're wondering about this line around here, this is my stitch line. This inside is the stitching line. Well, this will have about a 1/4 inch seam. Now, I'm looking at this, and this is kind of cattywampus on my plaid, so I'm just going to turn it there and make sure I'm not going to be drawing over my pins, and I look good. Okay. Now, my floral fabric doesn't have any directional print on it, so I'm just going to line the bottom edge, the longest edge up with my plaid, and then I'm going to take my Sharpie and I'm going to hold this down. I'm going to mark around it, just draw around it. Now, if you don't have poster board, you could do this with cardstock or regular printer paper, but it's harder. It's harder to stay right along the edge. The poster board gives you an edge to mark around. And I'm not using a super duper Sharpie. You have to be careful with Sharpies. They have a lot of ink in them. In fact, I'm going to have to get another one. This one's running out. If they have a lot of ink in them, they will bleed if you hold it too long on the fabric. So let me see if I can line that back up. There. Okay. Now I can move this. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out since it's a bigger piece. And I'll be cutting through both pieces. Okay, I've got my piece of fleece batting cut. I've got my 2 coordinating prints cut. And something I didn't show you, I cut a piece of fabric that is 15 inches long by 2 inches wide, and a piece of the batting that is 15 inches long by 1/2 inch wide. So the first thing we're going to do is determine what side we want on the outside. We want the print, floral, or the plaid. And I think I'm going to put the plaid on the inside. So, this is going to be my outside piece. I'm going to stack it up with the right side out on my fleece. Whoop, let me turn the fleece over. Line the edges up. And what we're going to do is do a little machine quilting on this. Now, you don't have to do this. You could just put it all together like it is. The machine quilting probably isn't necessary. In the event that somebody puts this in the washer and dryer, the batting sometimes will want to shift a little bit. So this would stop that. But I just think the quilting gives it a little bit more structure, a little bit more of a finished look. So I'm going to make my stitch length pretty long, and I'm going to stitch on the top of the fleece. If you put your fleece down, your feed dogs will chew it up, and that can cause you a problem. So let's just take a look. Let's draw some lines just to make sure it's easy on us. Let's draw a line right here. I've just got a Sharpie. I'm going to draw a line right here. And then I'm going to measure this. And it's about 5 inches. So about 2.5 inches in here. I'm going to draw a line. And since that's 2.5, I'm going to come over here 2.5 inches. I'm going to draw a line about 2.5 inches. You can be as decorative with this as you want. You can be as non-decorative with this as you want. If you wanted to, you could hand quilt this. You could hand quilt some little designs on it. Whatever you want to do. This is one of those ways where you can personalize this. All right. So I'm just going to start right at the edge with a long machine stitch, and I'm just going to stitch across these lines. I'll start right at the edge, because if you don't, you may not catch that stitching in your seams, and it may start to unravel. And I am holding this kind of firmly. I don't want my quilt batting to start stretching out and pushing out and hanging down past the edge. So I'm just kind of putting a little pressure on it downward, but also pulling it outwards a little bit too. Make sure you're not running over any pins. If you do, it's not the end of the world, but it can break your needle, and it can, cause you to take extra time. All right, I'm just going to cut these little threads off on this other edge. All right, one more. Now, we're going to lay our other piece on, and we're going to pin these together. And you see how that makes that look a little bit more finished with the quilting in it? I don't know if y'all can see that real good or not. You see my batting's a little bit past, so you want to make sure your seam allowance comes in on the actual fabric. You can trim that off. I'm not going to. I'm just going to watch it carefully. But if you feel more confident, just trim it off. Now, I'm going to put a pin here. And I'm going to put a pin here. It doesn't matter where you put the pin, but we have to leave an opening so we can turn this right side out. So that's just a good place for me to put it. It'll help me remember. And in the bottom's kind of a good place to have a turn opening anyway. All right, tighten my stitch length back up a little bit, and we're going to start at this first pin, and we're going to stitch around, and we're going to stop at this pin. So I want a 1/4 inch seam, and my foot is a 1/4 inch wide. Every foot is not a 1/4 inch wide. You'd want to measure yours. If you get that a little too wide, it really won't matter. I did build in a little play on this pattern, but you wouldn't want to get it real wide, because then your cards won't fit into your pockets. So we're going to stitch to about the 1/4 inch from the end, needle down, lift up the foot, pivot. Pivot, okay? At the corner, you want to go about a 1/4 inch past the corner and pivot again. On these rounded corners, just take your time. Whoop, missed that pin under there. Take your time and go around them slowly, and you'll be fine. You just stitch slowly, and you just kind of smoothly pull it around. You see how I'm doing that? It's not easy to visualize to get that stop a 1/4 inch every time. You could go in there, you could take a little ruler and put you a little dot. Just know that the more you do it, the easier it gets to see that. All right, we're going to stitch up to this last spot. Go backspace. Backspace to lock your stitches so that when you're turning it, they don't start opening up on you. All right, now I'm going to trim our corners. See this corner where it's stitched right there? We're going to, right there, we're going to cut that off diagonally. Right like that. And then I'm going to trim a little piece on either side. And we're going to go around on all our corners, on our outside corners like that. Could go ahead and trim that off. We don't need that. Might as well trim it off. Take some of the bulk off the seam. Be careful, don't cut into your stitching. If you do cut into your stitching, put it back on the machine and stitch a little bit inside where you cut. Okay, this is an inside corner. On this, we're just going to clip diagonally almost to the stitching. And then a little bit on either side. And then on these curves, we're going to trim it off a little bit. And then we're going to put some little slashes, just some little bead clips. Just little teensy clips. You don't want to go quite to the stitching. You'll see directions, they'll tell you cut all the way to the stitching. Well, all the way to the stitching is just a smidgen from cutting through the stitching. You'll be all right if you just cut a little bit. Got one more inside corner. See, I got almost to that, so I'm just gonna put it up here. I'm just gonna stitch just maybe a stitch length over. So I'll try to show y'all. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. I don't know if y'all can see right there where I stitched again. Hopefully you can. So it's just about the width of a stitch length, and I cut that. All right, now we're going to turn this right side out. I'm going to put my thumb in here. Start turning this end. It's kind of like turning a sock or shirt sleeve or something inside out. Just get it started and then just kind of keep working at it. Got my handy dandy little stick here. It's always best to use something that's dull to poke out your corners and not something that's sharp, like the tip of a knitting needle or a pencil. I have used those. I have poked holes all the way through the fabric too and had just a hot mess. So if you use something like that, you're gonna be real careful. I've messed up so many times that I just keep these little sticks on my sewing station now. Okay, you're just gonna work it out. Get it as sharp and nice as you can. And we're gonna do the top. And we can get the top because it's rounded. We can pretty much do that just with our finger and not have to use that stick. Okay, so now we've got our little item turned. Now I'm going to take this over there to the iron. I'm going to iron it. I'm going to try to get a good seam, a good crease on all my seams, because it is a little bulky with that fleece in there. And while I'm ironing it, I'm going to turn this in and I'm going to press that down too, where we left that opening. All right, I've got my wallet pressed down. I've got a couple of pins in it right there. That's at that opening. While I was at the iron, I took this strip. This strip is 15 inches by 2 inches wide. I folded it in half and I pressed it down. Then I opened it up and I folded each edge in to the crease and pressed those down. I did this one at a time, first one side and then the other. So this is going to make our tab for our D-ring, and it's also going to make a wristlet. Now if you just want this to be a little wallet, you don't have to do this. But if you want a wristlet or even just a little tab to attach to a key ring or something, this is how you do that. So I've done this. Now I'm going to open it up. I've got my little strip of batting. I'm going to put it right in there. And I'm going to fold it up over it. And that'll give it just a little bit of a pad. Just a little bit more body. See, I've got it in there and I'm just going to fold it up. I'm going to fold it back up. And put a couple of pins in it. Just to hold it closed so that it doesn't open up, my little batting strip doesn't shift. There. All right. Next we're going to do is some top stitching. We'll go back to our wallet item. We're going to stitch. We're going to stitch right along the edge. We're going to put the outside edge up so that we can see to get a nice straight stitch. And I'm just going to start about part way through here. Now there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Some people have an edge foot for their machine, and this edge foot's got a little piece under the foot, that that you hold your fabric up against. Well, I am just going to use the edge of my foot, which I know is 1/4 inch, but I'm going to move my needle over all the way to the right. And most needles will move over. Different machines do it different, and y'all know I'm using a really old machine. So I just have a little switch, but you have to figure out how to do it on your machine. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up to a longer stitch, just because that's the look I like. I like a top stitch to look where you can actually see the stitches, where they're not teensy. Okay, I'm just going to start. I did not back stitch there because my goal when I come back around is to run right back over the stitching I started with, and that way I can back stitch one time and not end up with a knot of back stitching. And when you get to these corners, you're going to handle them just like you did when we were stitching them inside out. But you're going to get closer to the edge, see, because we're not a 1/4 inch, we're more like an 1/8. Needle down, lift up the foot, pivot. Same thing with the inside corner. You're going to come just a little bit past it. You're going to pivot. And then when you get to the curves, just take your time. Go as slowly as you need to. Don't get all bent out of shape on this. Don't be trying to be perfect. One of the beauties of a handmade gift is that you can tell it's handmade. And you will see some handmade things that come out like China, that are just beautiful, beautifully perfect. Well, those people sit there and they do one thing 15 million times a day. And I don't know if you can see, but I just ran out of thread. So, what happens if you run out of thread during your top stitching? Well, first, trim everything off really close, really clean. Going to, hopefully you got the same color thread. I do, yay-haw. If you're running low on the color thread you've got on your machine, you want to pay attention to that before you start your top stitching, because you really don't want 2 colors of thread out there. That looks a little thrown off. Okay, so this is what works for me. I'm going to get my needle right over my stitches, about 2 stitches, about 3 stitches back from where my thread ran out. I'm going to go back 1 stitch. Now I'm going to go forward 2 stitches. And then back 1 stitch, and then forward. Whoop. Feed dog's not catching because I've got kind of a lump in my seam there. All right, we're coming up on where we started. I'm going to go in here and make sure my threads are trimmed. And I'm going to slowly come right up over my stitching. And I'm going to go back 2. And I'm going to come up 3. Snip it off. I'll show y'all how it looks. Now if you look really close, you can see that it's kind of heavy stitching there, but it's really hard to see it. Now over here where I started, where my thread ran out, I'm going to snip my threads. And so you can barely see it. Barely sits right in there. Okay. Now we're going to stitch our strap. And the same thing, I want to stitch right on the edge, right on the open edge, right there. So I'm going to leave my machine set up like it is. Now I really want to make sure I get the end good, so I'm going to start out with a back stitch and then forward. And that's just something that works best for me when I'm working on little straps and pieces. I don't know why, it just works for me. You just want to make sure you're getting both your little edges caught in there. Now, I want to stitch down the other side, so I'm just going to pivot, go over. Doesn't matter, you don't have to do this. It's just a little faster. Turn around, I'm going to come down this side. If I were doing a wider strap, I would probably stitch down the center, but I'm not doing a wider strap. This is going to be a narrow little strap. And here's our strap. Okay. Next thing. We're almost done. We're going to lay this with the outside facing down. This wider piece folds over. Line up these bottom edges, and then this piece folds over here. And you should be, where you fold should be pretty level with the edge here. You know, I think I'm going to go back, I'm going to put another row of stitching around here. I think that would dress that up nicely. Let me go back and do that. So, put my needle back to the center, right on the edge, and I'm just going to stitch around again. This is not necessary for the structure, it's just a decorative decision. Now if you don't like the way your top stitching looks, and goodness knows there's been lots of projects where I hated the way my top stitching looked, you don't have to do but one row. It's all up to you. If you want to use a decorative stitch, I would say that this first stitch, you need to be very close to the edge because you're catching the opening over there. If you want to use a decorative stitch, and a lot of machines have some beautiful decorative stitches, this one does have, you can do that. You make this personalized. You make this look like you. Okay, I think I'm gonna like that a little better. Excuse me. The fibers and the pollen and all is just killing me today. All right. Fold the wider end in first. And then fold the end that tapers in over here. You want to get your bottom edges even. Put a pin in it or two. Now, you're going to take your strap, you're going to cut 2 inches off of it. It doesn't have to be 100% exact, but about 2 inches. You don't want anything, I mean, you don't want 1 inch. You need to be pretty close to 2 inches. All right. It's going to go right in there, but we have to get our D-ring. Okay, I bought these D-rings at Hobby Lobby. It was $1.99 for 8 of them. They were not on sale, but I needed the D-rings. These are silver 1/2-inch D-rings. I'm going to slide this little D-ring in here, into this slat, onto this little thread. I'm going to line up the edges right there. Line up the edges. And we're going to tuck this right under here. So that's the way that's going to look when it's finished. So you see this just about in the center there. And your little wristlet will hang from here. So you keep that D-ring up, and you're going to start by stitching over this, and I'm going to stitch 2 or 3 times across this. I want to make sure I have that good and tight. So all you're doing really is you're stitching down this edge and you're stitching down this edge. So we'll start right here. And my machine might balk at all this weight, all this thickness. You want to push it in there, make sure that you've got something good, some good meat to catch on to. All right, so. Now I'm going to stitch back over that. See, my machine's bulking it. It's bulking. Doesn't like all that thickness. That's all right. I'm just going to baby it on over here. Now, get on up. Back stitch right there. All right. I'm going to clip this off. And I'm going to stitch over these stitches here. I'm going to stitch over this again. I'm going to stitch over these stitches over here. Okay, we've got it stitched down the sides, across the bottom. Got our D-ring on there, and I'm checking, and yes, my little handy dandy Kroger store card does fit in there. Tuck it in there. Now, the only thing left is put our lanyard on it. And I have to go find my lanyard parts. Okay, our finishing step is to add these little swivel hooks. I bought 2 swivel hooks at Hobby Lobby for $2.49. They're the same size, the 1/2 inch. They actually came with the D-rings, so I could have saved my money on that other package. But I need D-rings all the time, so it's all good. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've trimmed off my edges, my little ends, to make sure they're square, of my lanyard strap. I'm gonna put the end through there, and I'm gonna line it up right there. And I'm gonna take a narrow zigzag stitch, and I'm gonna zigzag across here. And I want it pretty tight. I don't want a lot of big gaps in between it. I want the stitches really covering up each other. I'm going to back stitch it. So it's about 3 layers of zigzagging. We'll trim these threads off real close. So you see how close those are. Now, I'm going to put the other end. Make sure you don't twist it. Hold it straight. Run it through there. Run it through. I'm going to pull it up, and I'm going to tuck it in. And I'm going to zigzag that right there, to stitch that. Stitch. Come back forward again, make sure I'm not slipping off. Now, I'm going to fold this up like this. I'm going to come back over, and I'm just going to straight stitch right across there. Right above the zigzag stitching. Like that. Move my needle over to the right so it'll catch. Yep, I'm still zigzagging. It's my straight stitch. And here's our lanyard. Here's how it looks. All we have to do is hook it on here. It's a swivel lanyard. The last thing to do is to put a closure on this. Now, a real easy closure is Velcro. Velcro, sometimes we'll get fuzz on it, it'll get dirty, it'll quit sticking. I got these oversized snaps, and I ordered these on Amazon. And they're sew on, so you stitch them on. And they are a tight snap. So, you've got a male end and a female side, and they snap together like this, see? So they also make magnet closures, but because you have a card in here, you probably don't want a magnet closure. So you want to make sure you get the right ones. I want the male to go on the top of the flap, right about there. And so I'm going to thread a needle, and I'm going to show y'all how to stitch this in just a minute. Okay, I've got my needle threaded, and I did double my thread and knot both ends together down here. I marked the center of my flap. Now I'm going to line up. So this has 6 little holes in it. I'm going to line up one little hole with my pin, and I want it just below my top stitching. I'm going to go under here and catch a little bit of the fabric with the needle and pull it up. Wow, this is really hard to catch, y'all. Catch it like this. Okay. See, I'm bringing that up right there by the top stitching. I want a little bit down. Okay. Now I'm going to catch the hole from the back like this. And I'm just going to stitch this over the edge. You're not going all the way through to the other side. You're just catching the fabric right there. Now you could put this on, you could put the snap on a little piece of cloth, and then you could stitch the cloth on there. But this is pretty fast and easy like this. So I'm going to put 7 or 8 loops of 7 or 8 stitches holding this on. And then I'm going to put the needle into the fabric and scoot over here to under the next hole. Pull it up and catch that hole. And I'm going to stitch this around. And we've got that piece put on. Now you have to put the other piece on. So you want to make sure you get it turn the right way. I'm just going to kind of hold it like that and then reach in there and hold that down. So that's where that one needs to go. on this one, you can reach all the way through, if you like, because it won't show. It's going to be on the inside. Then we've got that piece put on. Now you have to put the other piece on. So you want to make sure you get it turn the right way. I'm just going to kind of hold it like that and then reach in there and hold that down. So that's where that one needs to go. So on this one, you can reach all the way through, if you like, because it won't show. It's going to be on the inside. And here we have our little wrist wallet. Got a slot for a debit card. Because this dips down, this makes it real easy to pick out. And then you got one that's a little bit more secure back here. Snaps really easy. Little wristlet. Carry it like this. Carry it like this. Great little gift. Great little useful gift for your friends, family, and loved ones. Well, here are our finished products. You'll see this one is the one I showed in the video with the wrist strap, made out of the old shirts. This I made with fat quarters I purchased. It's a coordinating fabric, little foxes on the inside. And you'll notice I put the loop up higher and put a keychain on it so you can put your keys on it. And then this one I made out of a piece of an old quilt. This was an old quilt that I've been cutting up for other projects. When you use an old quilt, you don't have to put batting in it, just a liner. I used a coordinating fabric liner. And because it was so thick, I hand stitched it. I stitched it with a embroidery floss and a buttonhole stitch all the way around the side and this bottom. And then I used a running stitch around the flap. And I put a little embroidered flower on it. And this one has got a wrist strap also. So you see, you can use a bevy of different fabrics. You can get your fabrics from a lot of different places to make these. They're real economical. They're great little gifts. Well, y'all, I thank you so much for hanging with me through this video. I know it's a long one, but I hope you learned how to make some cool little gifts for your friends this year for Christmas. Thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't already subscribed, I would invite you to do so. But until we meet again, this is Ginger with Ginger Snap Thrifting.